Well, good evening, and welcome to the Cumberland County Commissioners meeting of Monday, September 19th, 2021. I will call this meeting to its order. Would those who would like to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance will may do so? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item tonight is approval of the minutes of August 8th, 2022.
Move passage.
Second.
Okay. No discussion or corrections? Is hearing none, seeing none, I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next set of minutes is to approve is August 29th, 2022.
Move passage.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Do we have any comments or corrections or anything? Is hearing none, seeing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
For the next, as the informational reports and presentations, and I'm going to turn this over to you, Jim.
Thank you. First up this evening is I just want to give an introduction to the commissioners. As many of you are aware, that Fay Lupi retired back in July. And we were very fortunate to hire Jen Annis, who is sitting there in the back row next to Liz. Wave, Jen.
Wave, Jen.
Jen comes to us from through these doors, where she was employed for the last 18 years, doing very similar type of work, just in a different capacity. And right from the beginning, when Faye told me that she was going to call it a career in July, she had one person in mind, and she goes, I'm just crossing my fingers that that person applies. She'll do a fantastic job. And that person applied, and that was Jen. So we're very fortunate that she's joined our team, and we're looking very forward to continuing to not miss a beat with the Domestic Violence Intervention Partnership, and continuing the great work that Faye started and moving that year over year. So welcome aboard, Jen.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Yep,
Well,
great.
okay.
The next item this evening is we wanted to do a quick introduction to two items that we would like to bring before you in October, and it's all about trying to hire and retain employees, which has been a common theme of ours over the last year. In your packets this evening, you would have a memo that was created by staff, and we have found that the next wave of hiring and retainage is to look at a 4-day work week. Biddeford just went that way, Sanford followed, and they are seeing a significant benefit by going to a 4-day work week. It means longer days for the first 4 days, of course, but as the memo spells out, it would get employees up to 40 hours. There would be a change in that if the employee took advantage of the 4-day work week, we would be looking at paying lunch. Right now, everyone gets a half-hour lunch unpaid. That would change. And so we wanted to introduce that to you, as that's kind of a common theme that's going, and for us to stay competitive, I think we need to look at it ourselves. I don't believe every employee will fit into this mold. It will be up to them in their home life whether they can fit into this mold, but it is something that we will look at non-union staff and see whether we can roll it out from department to department. So a lot of work still to be had, but it's an idea that we wanted to float to the commissioners, and we will continue to work on it over the next couple of days and weeks in preparation of possibly getting it before you in October to talk further about it. The second item is we have found that in every hire we're making, many times we're talking about a PTO package, vacation, sick time. that individual has left their current job at a higher PTO rate than what we were offering through the personnel policy for entry-level positions. And so we have taken a look at the non-management earned time scale within the personnel policy. And we felt as though it would probably be appropriate to strike out the first line, and the first line is years 1 to 3. So, if you were a new employee here at the county, you would be coming in, working 40 hours a week and getting 160 hours of PTO time. If you were a 37.5-hour-a-week employee, you'd be getting 150 hours per year. What we're proposing is to strike that first line, and then change the years up. So a new employee for year 1 through 5 would now get 200 hours per year, or 187.5 if you were a 37.5-hour. And then from years 6 to 20, it would go to 240 and 225. Years 21 plus would be 280 and 265.5. So it's really mirroring the management earned time scale, but for the non-management, it would, to keep it simple, would be adjusting the years and just stripping out that first line of 160 and bumping it up to 200. So again, just another idea that we have in keeping ourselves current in the HR hiring practices that we're seeing throughout our region. We're all, in a sense, competing against one another to attract the best employees possible. And if we don't chip around the edges like this, I feel as though we'll be behind the 8 ball rather quickly. So we keep on having these dialogues between staff, and we're all hearing what others are doing, and it's a give and take what we feel as though we can do in our organization. And so that's why we wanted to bring these 2 items forward this evening as an introduction, but just let you know that we're still refining the game plan and how to move forward with both of them.
So will you be bringing that, back in October, or would that be later?
Yes, both these items would require a change to the personnel policy, and so that would be the agenda item being brought forward.
At the next meeting? Yes, Commissioner.
Jim, does this apply to the whole, to hours and benefits?
In terms of which one?
PTO.
PTO, it's just hours.
So PTO stands for paid time off. That formerly would have been divided into several buckets, which
It would have been
included
paid, it would have been vacation and sick time. And
vacation,
about probably
sick.
15 years ago, the county merged
Right.
vacation and sick time.
All right, thank you.
How many other counties, Jim, have addressed that issue in a similar way? Do you know?
I don't know of any other counties. I only know municipalities because a lot of the circles I run in the Cumberland, York area are more with town and city managers than the county managers in our region. But we're all, as you've heard over the years, we're bringing people in from other municipalities to work for us versus
Right.
other counties to work for us. So we're in direct competition for the quality employee.
And have any of those municipalities, excuse me, actually created jobs that you could work from home most of the week?
It's a combination of a hybrid schedule still. Yeah. And it's not widespread. A lot of the municipalities have tried to bring employees back to the office, but there are some outliers out there.
Good, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
And then,
Comment of what
What?
is very common in District 3. Don't try to go to any of the communities on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
and on the 4-day work week, it doesn't necessarily have to be one day, because a lot of our employees may not be able to do it, so those who can do the 4-day, it could be alternating so that we always have office coverage, and so that we're able to continue the 40 hours of service within the courthouse or other non-union departments, but it will just be that one person that might be out Wednesday, might be out Friday, so.
My question is, how much of an expense is this going to be to the county if somebody takes with a hybrid, works a couple of days at home and then works a couple of days here? Would
We've been doing it for 2.5 years.
Oh, okay, okay.
We have
So-
a number of, half my department, because of space needs here in this building, are working a hybrid schedule.
Oh, okay.
We don't have enough desks within this building to house everyone.
Okay. Yep.
Then our last item this evening is the amended agenda this morning, and that is Kristen would like to run through a number of PowerPoint slides to introduce the CAPER, which is the year-end reporting document that gets sent off to HUD each year from the CDBG program. So, Kristen, would you like to present that?
Appreciate you allowing me to join the agenda today. I just got back from maternity leave, and I thought I had missed this month's meeting, but when I found out it was today, I begged to be added onto it because, as you may remember, we turn in our CAPER on September 28th each year, and so we have a public comment period before that for 15 days. So we are right now in the public comment period on our CAPER. The full CAPER is up on the city's website and the community development page under our plans and reports if anyone is interested in reading the full CAPER. But the full CAPER itself is pretty boring, and what I like to present is the fun part of what we do is getting to see all the pictures and accomplishments that we go through each year. So Jim, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide for me. So just to give you a quick background overview of the CDBG program, here in Cumberland County, we have everyone except for Portland and Brunswick are part of our what we call the Cumberland County Entitlement Jurisdiction. And then within those 25 remaining communities, excluding Portland and Brunswick, South Portland and Bridgeton have a set aside of those funds. So we get our annual allocation from HUD, and in 2021, so this is July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022, we got a little over 1.5 million, and that gets divided into those three buckets of the county, South Portland and Bridgeton. Along with that, we have our home consortium, which we are in with the city of Portland. This includes Brunswick in that for Cumberland County, but excludes Portland. And for that, we received $750,000. Part of that was actually funds from the prior year that we ended up not spending because we had allocated funds to an affordable housing project in Cape Elizabeth that ended up not moving forward. So we were able to dole out that $750,000 this past year. And then we didn't receive additional COVID funds in 2021, but we are still very much administering those COVID funds for CDBG CV program, and mainly those round 3, which is just under $1 million for that. So a few highlights from this year. Not everything we do makes really nice, beautiful pictures. Like some of the prior years, I've got to show my favorite are the affordable housing projects because it's such a cool before and after. But some of the highlights that we have for this year is we expended between July 1st and June 30th, about a little over $2.2 million went out into our communities. We did 35 home repair projects, and we have over 60 in the queue right now. Once people found out that we've now started moving to doing interior work, we were only able to do exterior work during COVID. We have a lot of folks signing up that qualify as lower moderate income and need critical home repairs. So we're very thankful for Habitat for Humanity for getting moving on that and expanding their program to serve all those individuals. We completed 14 ADA ramps this past year. There's quite a few more in the queue. We purchased 2 vans for food pantries. The reason these were purchased last year versus the year before is because they were actually ordered the year before, and due to the backlog of the supply chain there, that's the word I'm looking for, they took almost a year for both of them to come in. One was 11 months, and actually Standish was 13 months for the van to come in. 60 kids got scholarships to summer camp so that they had programming during the summer. 161 victims of senior abuse were provided assistance throughout Cumberland County. And again, that's excluding the city of Portland in that number. And we had 64 new American families that received assistance through an Interculture Community Center in Westbrook. It is amazing what they're doing over there. They're helping everything from opening up mail to reading folks' mail for them so that they understand what they need to be applying for or what letters their kids are getting sent home from school, helping them sign up for public school, adult education, computer classes, English literacy classes, signing up for COVID vaccines. They got a bunch of churches that are very predominant in the area to come and get vaccinated and had big church days to increase our numbers there. They've been helping with finding housing and much, much more. It's amazing the amount of work that they're doing over there at Interculture Community Center. We had 29 kids between the age of 10 and 13 who were able to receive aftercare programming in Westbrook through My Place Teen Center. This was previously funded at the state level, and then the state cut it off and raised the number to age 13. So we were able to fill that gap and provide after-school care for those kids. And then we also had 273 families who were homeless in Portland that had then spilled over into the rest of the surrounding areas of Cumberland County and helped them find housing. Overall, there was 1,500 and something individuals in 450 households that were trying to get placed. And we were able to hire a resettlement coordinator. She's working out of the city of Portland, and the work that she's doing is so critical because it is coordinating 170 community providers who are helping all of these individuals who are homeless in Cumberland County. So it's everything from coming up with charts of, on these days, these organizations are at these hotels delivering food, to working with people like Liz on incentives that she has, working with people like Sandy are on these calls as well, just trying to figure out who's helping who, where are the gaps, and what can we do to make sure that we're not duplicating any of the services while causing gaps in other areas. And this is something that just wasn't done before. Everyone kind of knew what other folks were doing, but there was not one person kind of in charge saying, hey, let's all make this into a big spreadsheet. Let's all get on a call every month or two and coordinate it all. And I bet you would agree that it has been a huge difference in the quality of service that's being able to be provided when everyone knows all the initiatives that other organizations are doing right now. So moving on to some fun pictures, because I can't come here at the end of the year and not show fun pictures. This is one of our not so fun ones, but it's a sidewalk. We do a lot of sidewalk and road construction, which isn't as pretty as some of the other ones. But this is an area in Bridgeton that desperately needed a sidewalk. There's a ball field right nearby, and it's important that people have a safe place to walk, especially small children. Then in Gorham, this is the Little Falls recreation area. It's a heavily used field all year long, and there were no bathrooms on site, which is, as you can imagine, when you're having plenty of sports games, not the best situation. So we now have bathrooms and a concession stand built at this facility. We have the Red Bank neighborhood. We built a community garden there, and we're able to put up a really nice fence around it so that the folks in the neighborhood can rent a plot, or actually have a plot given to them at a very reduced cost, and then it's fenced off to make sure animals and whatnot don't come on in. Cundy's Harbor Library, we're now starting phase 2 of this project. They were one of those victims of increasing costs situations of every time they turn around, it's going to be 3 times as much as they were expecting to get the projects completed. The latest phase that has been going on right now is the siding. I'd like to point out one of the siding quotes was for $176,000 just for the siding. They were not the lowest bidder. We went with a different one, but that's
I would hope.
that they're getting some really nice quality siding added on to this project. This is one of the vans that we purchased for the Gorden Food Pantry for doing their food deliveries. One of the reasons that they wanted a van is because they deliver to a lot of senior homes in the area. Vesta has a senior home, and so they're able to take the food from the pantry, and instead of having those seniors come down to the pantry to pick it up, they're able to package it up and bring it right to them. Westbrook Street boat launch. This first picture, I wish I had more of the before pictures. It's not showing how bad it was. There's no possible way to even kind of get any type of boat back there. So they repaved the whole area. This first picture is kind of looking down into the water. The middle picture is looking from the water back up. And you can see that it's a nice spot to get a boat down there. It's not for motorized boats, and the rec department will be planning to get some canoes and kayaks that they'll be able to rent out to people at reduced costs in the neighborhood, so that folks can use the water here. Along the side there, you can see our Cumberland County car is parked on permeable pavers to help with the water retainage there, and the car is actually facing another one of our projects, which we showed you last year, which was the four-season court. It's used as a hockey rink in the wintertime and a hard surface soccer court in the summertime. And then, just because these kids are so cute, I couldn't help it. This is the New Begin Playground in Gray. We went to the grand opening there. This is the only playground in the entire town of Gray that is not located at a school. So if you had, say, a 1 through 4-year-old that wants to go to a playground and it's during school hours, there is no place in the entire town for you to go. So they've constructed a playground, and it's right next to the ball field. I've brought my kids there, and it's always full of kids. So that is a few of the highlights of the projects that we have completed this year. And we are hoping, now that a lot of these COVID funds are winding down, that things are going to kind of slow down a little bit for our office and go back to the way they were pre-pandemic. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about the work we do.
Do we have any questions for her?
No, another great job and another great year, Kristen. We appreciate all your hard work, and we're happy to have you back.
Great, thank you so much.
Steve, do you have a question?
I don't, but I will talk with one of the individuals later.
Okay.
Got an idea that's coming. What it is that we found from Coastal County Workforce, the board there, that if we have individuals in an opioid program, up through the end of December, we can get dental work done for them. All of a sudden, this grant, they've got to disperse it by then. And it's up to about $5,000 a person. So, it's good for dentures, everything. And you've got individuals and programs that are in some sort of a drug program. There's a possibility that they can get some dental work done.
I think between the three of us, 4 of us, we can easily give you a list of who
The
to contact.
individual was Coastal County Workforce is Antoine. I'll give you.
Yeah, great, awesome, definitely, thank you.
Well, Jim, did you have some questions?
I just wanted to take an opportunity and recognize Kristen and Courtney in the CDBG office. Kristen made mention that she came back from maternity leave just 2 weeks ago now. And upon her coming back, HUD notified them that they were coming in for an audit of the CDBG office. And so here's Kristen coming off of maternity leave, having really no time to be prepared. But all things turned out perfect. HUD actually ended their review early because Kristen and Courtney were able to get them things very quickly. And HUD passed on to both of them that it was the first time in 5 years that they had an audit of the CDBG program that had no findings.
Well,
And that says a lot. So we got 2 quality people, and Sandy was on the front end of that before she jumped over to the compliance manager. So there's been a lot of quality being done in the CDBG office, and that audit report just shows that they're on top of things. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
yeah, well, thank you all. Okay. The next up is comments from the public, and we don't have any public here tonight, so we will just go over. Okay, the next is the consent agenda. Yeah, consent agenda.
Move it.
Second.
Is there any, do we have any discussion on anything or anything? Seeing none, hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep, so it is passed. Okay. Next up is operable business with the new, is item 22-103. And I am going to turn this over to you, Jim, or to Sandy, or?
We'll pass it right over to Sandy. I'll introduce it. This item's coming back for second reading. You had first reading back in August. As you remember, they have, first reading was approval of the $500,000 for the Cumberland County Adult Ed. And I'll pass it over to Sandy if she has anything more to add on anything that's taken place between first reading and second reading.
Yeah, thank you. So, at this time, we ask for the final review and approval, and if you have any consent, funding consent amendments you'd like to make to this particular application, now would be a great time to do that. I know that we've talked to some of the commissioners, and they had looked at trying to get a more fair and equitable process for the overall funds themselves, so ensuring that all of the outlining hubs receive funding, and to do that, maybe providing sub-funding for it, for each individual hub. But if you want, Commissioner Witonis, I'll let you take the lead on that, and I can fill in the blanks if you'd like.
Okay, I think I'm going to wait until we have a first and second, and then I'll pull it. Okay, yep.
So I'll move passage.
A second.
That was second, okay. Yes, I would like to make an amendment to the 22-103 is in order to promote a fair and equitable distribution is of the award, is I request a set-aside provision to include within the terms and condition of the awarded a contract. The set-aside provision would require that the 9 outlying hubs would be designated a minimum of $30,000 is the allocation of funds, or with $270,000 out of the $500,000 or contribution, with the remaining with $230,000 can be distributed through with the eco hubs based on the educational needs. This would allow for adult educations to both meet its current student demands, while is also ensuring that the smaller, more rural communities are not left out. So that would be my amendment.
Well, I'll second the amendment, but I did want to talk about it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah,
So I guess we'll deal with the amendment first, is that what we're doing?
yes.
Well,
Well,
I
okay,
just
wait a
wonder whether there is,
Discussion,
Yeah.
that's fine.
whether the hubs that you're talking about have been contacted and support this.
Well, I would say they have been here several times, and they've indicated, that they need this money. And what my biggest fear is that if it stays in the big hubs and then it's would distribute it out, they might not get, the allocation.
So
What
they haven't been involved in
No,
the
they
process
have
to
not been
generate
involved.
this.
This was mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, I guess I'm not against it, but it does seem to me like it's not smart to, or wise, it maybe makes people feel like they're appreciated and noticed, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, of course. But, they already have their own allocating process. And the first thing that I think of is if one of these hubs that wouldn't ordinarily have certain programming ends up with funding that they wouldn't otherwise have or use, that what's going to happen is that programs will be shifted to various places in order to absorb the allocations. But the amount of money isn't so much that it necessarily would be that likely. I in general would not like the idea of kind of doing this kind of thing from the top down as opposed to with their participation, but I'm happy to support it if it makes sense to you.
Sandy, what's your view, since you've dealt with the application process and this particular applicant?
Yeah, I think that they would be fine with this particular setup and carve out for the outlying communities. So there's 10 hubs, and this would go to the 9, so kind of excluding Portland from this whole process of getting additional funds to really ensure that the Lakes region has an opportunity to use the funds. And what we would do, or I would do, is carve out milestones for those funding so that if they weren't using it or they didn't need it, and it did need to go to Freeport or Scarborough or someone else, that we would look at that, review it, and apply those funds to those other people if they truly did need the dollars. But it's initially set up so that that way, if Lakes Region needed the funding, it's there, and it doesn't get eaten up immediately by Freeport or another community. So it does seem really fair to me to try and at least give them some pot of the funds, but creating those milestones to ensure we use all of it.
Is there a risk that one of the outlying communities won't use the money?
Is there what?
Is there a risk that or possibility one of the outlying communities won't use the money?
Yeah, I mean, that, you can't guarantee anything, but I think that's why we would put in those funding milestones, just to ensure that if they're not drawing it down, we'll repurpose it. And
Okay.
So I have
Fair
a couple
enough.
of questions. If one of the hubs does not use the $30,000, would that allocation lapse, or would it be recirculated?
Reprogram, recirculated.
Can we understand that to be the meaning of this amendment?
Well, okay, well, yeah, we could put that in. Is that an amendment to the amendment, or?
Can be a friendly amendment.
Right, we don't-
Friendly amendment, yeah.
And then, can you tell me the status of Portland in all of this?
So Portland always acts as the fiscal agent for them because they have the admin, they have everything they need in terms of the financial capacity to run a grant that these other groups don't. So Portland's sort of the pass-through agency for the money itself. Portland just will invoice me and provide me all the data that I need, and the hubs themselves will meet and coordinate, determine where the current need is. So for example, we've heard from the folks about Freeport and South Portland. As of right now, that's where I'm assuming most of the funding will initially go to, and those teachers that they're gonna bring on. I think it was 1.5 full-time employees that they mentioned, that would initially bounce to Freeport and South Portland. to
So
cover
are any of these funds going to be available for programming in Portland?
No, that's not what it's meant for. It's meant for those outlining hubs.
And Portland's,
Portland has enough money.
they're aware of that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
I think we made it pretty clear.
Yeah, I think.
Is this the second reading of
Yes.
Yes,
it
this is the second reading.
It's a vote night.
Yeah, Commissioner Stephen.
the?
Go ahead.
Again, I say that I oppose this, and for a couple of reasons. One is that the responsibility for education lies with the state and with the municipalities, doesn't lie with the county. The second is the citizenry through the municipalities, and the municipalities and the counties still come out of the same tax bucket, have said no. And this is a way to get around that, so it's still coming out of your tax bucket. And the third way is that there is another pathway. Now, they've said that they can't go to coastal county workforce, and they can. The problem is, they have to come with the client, determine the need, and set the program. This way, they're just predicting what they're going to do. These are predictive dollars. They're not actual dollars with an assigned client. I just don't support it.
But it's my understanding that the new, what's the word? The newer conditions, when that came down, they wanted, with the money were to be put into the educations, right? And schools, is that correct?
Yeah. So
Yes.
from the ARPA committee?
Yes, we're from the
They
ARPA,
very
yes.
much want to do more education
Right.
as much as they can support it with your approval.
Right.
Yeah. And what we understood from the hubs themselves was that the students that they're currently trying to work with these funds are the ones that don't yet qualify because they don't have the education they need to commit to the programs that coastal counties pass. Or at least that's our understanding, that these kids
That's my
need
understanding.
GEDs, they need that 10th grade reading level in order to go into those workforce type
Right.
programs. And that's their goal, was to try to get them up to those. reading and writing levels to be able to.
Just another question, Sandy. A positive vote here tonight, what's the timing on the implementation of getting the resources out to the communities?
Oh, I would sign a contract with them relatively quickly, within a couple of weeks, and then they can start drawing the funds immediately.
So,
Yeah.
pretty soon, very
Yeah.
good, okay, thank you.
I was going to respond to Commissioner Gordon's discussion, which has got a great deal of merit to it, I think. But community I represent nominated itself to be a resettlement community shortly after the Vietnam War, one of the first communities in the country to do that. And it found very quickly thereafter that without support from the state and of any great amount, that they had communities in their city that consisted of people who had been cast away from other places in very necessitous circumstances, and one of the biggest needs was education and adult education. And adult education has been the poor stepchild of the education system ever since. To say that the Portland system now has adequate funding is a comparison to what happens elsewhere, but it is a stretch if you look at the need and what has to be accomplished. But that having been said, spreading the resources for programs to places where there's an obvious need makes sense, and so I'm going to support this. But all along, there has been a succession of waves of different communities coming into Portland, and they spread into other communities fairly quickly after that. And I can name the Vietnamese, the Cambodians, the Laotians, the Eastern Europeans from a variety of places, numerous waves of North Africans, and now Central Africans are coming, Mexicans, other parts of Latin America. They all have communities here in Portland, and of course in other communities as they kind of transition out of the city and into other nearby places. So, I mean, they're a tremendous resource for our communities and for our culture, but they're not free. So I'm going to be supporting this, including the amendment.
Steve, do you have another question?
Well, not really. I mean, I'm not against the education. That's not the issue for me. The issue is the two governmental entities that have the responsibility. They all have the same kind of funds we've got. They get the same kind of percentage of awards, and they don't see the need there enough so that they're going to use their funds to support what they're required to do. And now people are coming to the county who doesn't have that responsibility, and therefore we can't use it for other projects which we should be doing.
Call the vote?
Yeah, I call for vote. All those in favor of the amendment set aside? Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Now we need to make with a motion on with the award.
Well, the vote, actually, the motion's made, it's just
The
a vote.
motion's made and has now
Oh.
been amended.
Okay,
So that's
okay,
fine.
gotcha, okay. Okay. So Sandy, you have your work
No,
cut out.
we have to,
Oh,
we still have to
wait.
vote on the underlying,
Well, yeah, that's what
right.
I was saying, and then you guys said, oh, no, no,
No,
no.
I think what you said is that,
Okay.
that we had to
Make a motion.
make a motion.
Okay,
The
okay.
motion's on the floor,
Okay.
right? So.
I call for a vote. All right?
Right.
Correct.
I'm right, correct. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? One. So it's 3 and 1. Okay. And I think you've got your work cut out for you. Okay. Thank you, guys.
A challenging project, but a worthwhile project.
Project,
You
yeah,
know, and we
yeah.
have this once-in-a-generation source of funds, Sandy, and,
Yeah.
and I know you do a great job helping administrate it.
Okay. Keep- Okay, thank you. We'll keep up the good work. That was confusing, okay. Now is item 22 dash
Well,
oh.
let me add
Okay.
one other thing. Sandy,
Yeah.
you still ought to get a hold of Coastal County and see if you can't work that back in.
Yep.
Because that will then free up some of these funds for addition.
There's another water in my bag. if
Yeah,
you
and
want.
I have reached out to them, and I've been in conversations with them and with us. And essentially, those kids that would come through our program would then go to coastal counties. Because I agree with you, that is, they do it by that sort of voucher system almost, or scholarship. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, but the next item is 22 014. Jim, I'm gonna turn this over to you.
Thank you. This item is coming forward for an award of contract for a construction manager to Landry French Construction. This item is for the jail medical addition. That is through the opera funds. We are at a stage that we are at, I believe it's 60% architectural drawings, or maybe it's 40%. Maybe 40% architectural drawings. And before we can go much further, we need to go through this process of bringing on a construction manager to take the helm and further refine the drawings and start working with estimators and contractors and subcontractors to really start moving towards 100% drawings. We received a fair amount of interest in this. I believe there were 4 bidders, ranging in price from $175,250 to $357,500. The committee that was made up of county staff and our architects from SMRT are bringing forward not the low bid, but the second to the low bid, and that is Landry French, who has been doing a lot of work within the region over the last couple of years. And so we feel very confident in their abilities and feel as though they're the right firm to take this job and move it forward. So we'd ask you to approve this award for $188,750 out of ARPA to Landry French Construction. Thank you.
Do we have any discussion?
Jim, they were a little over $10,000 higher than the lowest bidder, is that?
Yes.
I move passage.
Do I have a second?
Happy second.
Do we have any discussion on this? Is that call for a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, the next item is 22 105. Jim, I'm turning that over to you.
And I'm going to ask Sandy to come up to the microphone and introduce this one.
Absolutely. So back in January of this year, Avesta Housing had requested funds to help support a project called Village Commons, which I know you're all familiar with. This was part of our packet several months ago for that particular affordable housing development. So recently, they came to the ARPA Advisory Committee requesting additional funding. Their cost estimates, as you know, because of inflation, just ballooned out of control for them. So they went back to us, they went to the City of Portland and County Home Consortium, also Maine Housing, seeking additional funds to help support the higher construction costs. So they originally estimated $229 per square foot, and now it's gone up in just 6 months to $311 per square foot. So they went back to the drawing board, made some cuts, and this is where they're kind of left at. And they came to me and said, well, listen, I only asked for $350,000 of our acquisition costs, even though it was a $500,000 delta for us. Can we make that up? Can I request that now instead because of this overage that we received? So they presented the proposal to the ARPA Advisory Committee, who looked at it, and determined that they thought this was a reasonable request and understand the inflation in the market, and approved that, or recommending giving them $150,000 in addition. And this is before you today to approve that recommendation of the ARPA Advisory Committee.
Do
I
I?
move passage.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Just as a comment, I think it's a worthwhile project.
And we have funds, it's not a huge allocation at this point in time, and this will, I think, assist Avesta in moving forward.
Yeah, and I would add that Avesta is a nonprofit operation that has been around, it used to be called York Cumberland Housing.
That's right.
It's, they very clearly have a mission that they execute. They've been doing it very competitively. I mean, they're constantly competing for grants and that kind of stuff with other people who would propose to do what they do. And they're a consistent performer, and I don't doubt for a minute that the shock and awe that they've described in their budget for this project is something that they did not cause, and they're as good a provider for this kind of project as we would ever find anyway. So if they say their costs have vaulted and they need help, then I believe them.
If there's no other discussion, I call for vote. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes.
Very good.
So now on to new business. It's the presentation of the 23.5 budget and the 23-24 budgets.
Me?
Yes, it's
All
you.
right,
It's all
thank
you.
All right, thank you. As the commissioners are aware, this is the year that we put together, in totality, 18 months' worth of budget. And because we are transitioning our general fund budget from a January to December time period to a July to June. We currently have the cross-insurance arena budget and the jail budget on the July to June budget cycle, and this will mirror up all three of our budgets on the same budget cycle, and also mirror it up with most, if not all, of the municipalities throughout our region who have a July to June. One benefit of the revised general fund budget would be that we'll have a better cash flow over 12 months than we do today. Many times, if our state jail check is running late, we may be scraping bottom in end of July, first 2 weeks of August, because the cash flow is not all that heavy, as we're waiting for our warrants to be paid by the municipalities in August through October. So we have moved forward with this. It has required us to create an 18-month budget. We have created, in a sense, two budgets. We call the first budget 2023.5, which is a half-year budget spanning from January to June of 2023. And then we have our first fiscal year budget of 23-24. This was no easy task. It was a heavy lift. So much so that Alex is on his back right now with a heat blanket on him because he's pulled his back out. So he will not be joining us this evening. So the 23.5 budget, it's going to be a very reduced presentation. We will not have the charts and the spreadsheets to go along with comparing it from one year to the next, because the 23.5 budget really can't be compared to anything. It's what do we need to run an operation, pretty much keeping the lights on from January to June of next year. Just some highlights of the budget. January 1st, we're looking at a 2.5% COLA. Health insurance, we're estimating about 8%. We are trending, every quarter we've been trending on the wrong side of the dime on health insurance. That might be a sign of the times, because we had so many people that weren't able to get into their doctors over the pandemic years, and now everything's coming to fruition. But we're going to see close to an 8% after seeing anywhere between 2 and 5% over the last 3 years. We will still have a TAN loan, but the $41,000 that represents that line item in the half-year budget is pretty much just putting together the TAN and paying all the consultants. There's no principal or interest involved in it. Non-debt capital, we've tried to skinny that up as much as possible for the first 6 months, so we're just under $170,000. no new positions, and we have enough that we can put $200,000 up from the tax stabilization account towards this 6-month budget. If we were to look at comparing the 6-month budget to a full year 2022 adopted budget that we're currently in, you can see that it's significantly reduced by almost just over 51% reduced. So it's really that a clear example of not being able to really do apples and apples budget comparison on the 6 month. Even the year is very tough going year over year. But needs for taxes, we're looking at the manager's budget at just under $8.9 million. The jail is at just over $7.6 million. Cross-insurance needs at just under $860,000 for a combined 6-month total of $17,198,860, which if you compare it to the 2022 needs from taxes, it's a reduction of 51.4%, but that's because it's a 6-month versus a 1-year budget. Debt capital in the tan, again, I won't get down through all this. You can see we're really cutting it in half, if not more than half, along the way. Total reduction of 62.94%. Human Services, I've been in contact with many of the human service recipients and telling them that we will be moving them on to a July to June budget, so the first 6 months. We won't be working through many of them. However, we do have some, like the Soil and Water District, the Extension Service, and Tedford House that rely on these funds for their organization, their paying employees. So what we have done is, in a sense, split it in half and provided that contribution. So we are proposing a $77,000 contribution between those 3 entities. Non-debt capital, as I stated, is about $170,000. That's just the long-term non-debt. It's computer reserve. It's tasers. It's flak jackets. We have about 6 or 7 non-debt items that are annually, every single year, we fund them to some level, and that's what it is for a 6-month cost. Like I said before, tax stabilization, we were able to sneak in $200,000 out of that because we did not need to use $200,000 last year because we ended the year to the positive. So we are proposing putting $200,000 into the 23.5, and as you can see, the next one is the next budget we're going to jump into right now. However, it does slide the scale, so we'll go 200,000 down to 150,000, down to 100,000, down to 50,000, which we do have that available funding in the tax stabilization plan, and there'll be no need to move further funding into that plan to cover this schedule. Now for the 23-24 budgets. This is our first full year budget, which will start July 1st, 2023 and extend to June 30th, 2024. A couple of themes of this budget. Salaries, keeping up with market, ability to hire and retain our employees. It is a constant battle and keeping our ears open on what others are doing. We don't want to lose ground. Health insurance, we're still seeing employees shifting from single or not taking it all into taking health insurance or increasing their health insurance to either with dependent or family. Tax stabilization we're using again. And post-pandemic, a lot of lines are adjusted because things are starting to open up. When you get into the granular part of the budget, you'll start seeing travel itching up, trainings itching up, items like that. Yes, Steve?
Kind of get back to salaries in your remarks about keeping up with everything. The COLA, is that determined because of contract or something like that, 2.5%?
Not really, no. No, because our contracts are higher than 2.5%. But the next slide will give you a little bit more a narrative. The first full year budget, we're proposing a 5%. So you heard me say 2.5% in January, 5% in July. Why am I doing that? Partly because we missed the boat for our non-union employees this past January. When we were building the budget last summer, we did not see prices escalating like we did come December, January, February. A lot of municipalities were able to adjust because they were on the July to June budget, and they were preparing their budgets in January to April, May, and they were putting in 5 to 7, 8% COLAs for their non-union employees, and carving that off to some of their unions that they were negotiating with. I know one community that asked all the unions to open up their contracts and gave them more money in their contracts. So I think we owe it to our non-union employees to have that 2.5 in January and the 5 in July to not only look forward, but also to kind of look back and say, costs are creeping up, and we need to make sure that the COLAs are there and our salaries remain competitive with those around us. Health insurance increase, we're hoping that we kind of dip down to, and so we've plugged a 5% in, but that's best guess at this point. We got crystal ball looking a year out. New positions, there is one in this budget, and that one position is the FOIA receptionist or worker down at the sheriff's office for if the body cams and dash cams go forward, they're going to need a person handling all the FOIA. I was a skeptic on this position, feeling as though we might be able to handle it internally. Then I reached out to the major in the Portland Police Department and asked them how they handle their body cams, and he sent me a great email, really saying it's a full-time position. The number of inquiries they get wanting the film of this case or that case, and from attorneys, from all over, insurance companies, it is quite labor-intensive just on the body cams and dash cams. We will be increasing the TAN loan from $161,000 to $191,000 because of interest rates. We do have a bond in this of just over $3.8 million. We have non-debt capital of just under $280,000. Again, we will use another $200,000 out of the tax stabilization fund account, and our tax rate impact is 5.91%. So in totality, when you bring the county jail cross-insurance expenses down, we're up just over $2.9 million. We're offsetting the expenditures through enterprise funds and grants for a total of $67,480,198, or just over 4.1 million increase, 6.54% increase. Here's the jail expenses. We are looking at revenues significantly going down. We have a major concern with revenues in the jail. As you all know, we've lost our federal borders. No timetable when they will be coming back. But at this point, we're hopeful that they'll be back, but we will lose some ground on that. So revenues alone in the jail will be losing $400,000. Expenses, we have just going up slightly because we feel as though we can take a break from the 4%, a little bit on expenses, but the revenues are going to force us to the 4% because of the number of positions that we have down, so that we can make budget at an increase of just $590,603, or the 4% allowed by state statute. If it wasn't for that $400,000 loss in revenue, we probably wouldn't be proposing that 4% increase. Cross Insurance Arena, bond in principal, prior debt up top. We got capital item coming in at $80,000, which is a new sound system within the arena next July. Operations is up slightly at $650,000, or an increase of just over $85,000, for a total needs from taxes of $147,693. So in totality, between county jail and Cross Insurance Arena, total needs from taxes is just over $2 million, or a tax increase of 5.91%. The debt, we are actually, in totality, reducing the debt by just over $12,000. As you will note, the tax anticipation note on the bottom line there is up $30,000, just because of interest rates. Human Services and Grants, we bring back $10,000 allocation of Portland Public Library. Casco Bay Can has folded at this time, so we will be reducing that by $16,000. Soil and Water, $18,000. We have remained flat for 2 years for the extension service at $115,000. I'm proposing bumping that up $5,000 to $120,000. Tedford House again at $15,000. Coastal County Workforce, we'd never allocated any funds. We've had it in the budget for 3 years and never allocated anything. So we're proposing the savings there, and then $100,000 to the Thrive for distribution come next spring, for a reduction of $12,000 in totality out of the Human Service Grants item. Capital, the bonding, we are looking to finally do the jail roof at $1.7 million. Exterior repointing of the building at the jail at just $275,000. This one snuck up on us, the door locks in the cells. They're all electronic from a central panel. The skeleton keys are no longer. But we need to replace those, and we need to replace those locks now because we have a jail medical wing going on, which is going to need another lock system, and we can't take our dinosaur lock system within the existing jail and replicate it into the medical wing. So we got to change the entire lock system in the jail, which it's time anyways. We've been breathing life into that system and hauling the company up from Alabama for the last 3 years that I'm aware of to keep that thing on life support. So we do need to move forward with those door locks. And it's always important to keep the inmates in their rooms.
Or at least in the facility.
Facility, right. Yeah. We are looking at just under $481,000 for parking garage repairs. Bill Trufant has received a master plan from an architect firm this past year. It looks like we got about $2.5 million worth of improvements that need to be made over the next 5 to 8 years in the parking garage, and we're slowly going to be chipping away at it through this contribution. And then we need to redo the fire alarm system in this building. It was probably 3 months ago that you were getting emails from me that we might be closing the building because we did not have a operational fire alarm that was making the audible and the strobe. We were only getting the strobe, and if you can't get the audible, that means people need to be in eyesight of the strobe to know that it's going off. We were able to find a construction company in the region after 2 weeks of sweating and finding that we can't get one within 4 or 5 months shipped to us. The construction company actually allowed us to take theirs as long as we ordered that one that took 4 or 5 months to get here. So they really bailed us out. But we need to do something with the entire fire alarm system in this building because it is past its prime and it's giving us fits and starts on a monthly basis. So in totality, we have a total bond request of just over $3.8 million. Here's the second contribution of $200,000 towards tax stabilization,
So in 18 months, Jim, we're contributing 400 grand.
400 grand, yep. And that concludes, I should say, the 23.5 and the 23-24. What we have for next steps is the Finance Committee, made up of 7 individuals from elected bodies across Cumberland County, will be meeting on Wednesday this week at 5 o'clock in this room to be introduced to both of these budgets in similar fashion than what I just did just now. And we will be working through a number of the budget cost centers and line items. And then we have 2 additional meetings, one in October 12th, and the other in November 9th. Those meetings will be held via Zoom, and those meetings will, the first starts at 5 o'clock, and the second one, I'm hoping we can start a little earlier at 3 o'clock, since we have something going on later that evening.
It's October.
October 12th and November 9th.
Send those over.
Yes. Yes. We may or may not need an extra meeting somewhere in there. We're hoping that we did something very unique this year with the Finance Committee members, in that they requested last year the opportunity to meet in July. That's not typically the case. But Alex and I met with them in July to talk about how the cross-insurance arena budget fared, and the jail budget, because both those budgets ended June 30th. And we also gave a snapshot on how we're doing in the 2022 budget and 6 months into it. So we've had quite a bit of dialogue already about the jail and cross-insurance budgets, and the current budget. So this group is, the Finance Committee is a fantastic group. They all are very attentive and really wanting to learn county operations. We really saw that last year. And so I'm looking forward to working with them over the next 3 meetings to show them these 2 budgets and to get their blessing on both of them for a positive recommendation.
Have they seen these docs yet?
Those documents were emailed out to them the same day you received them.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to, because we had both meetings this week.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Oh, great job, Jim and the
good
staff. I really appreciate
I
it.
gotta recognize Alex. Alex did a lot of the heavy lifting on this. It was not easy trying to figure out what should be placed in the 6-month, what to be placed in the year. And when it comes to salaries and COLAs and steps and everything for employees, that was mind-numbing. It really was. And it took a lot of time for us to get our heads around it, and Alex did a fantastic job, really narrowing that down and pulling it off. So
Do
a
we
lot of
need
credit to him.
a formal vote to refer this to the Finance
Well,
Committee?
Steve, you have a question, or
Well, I got a comment. Let's take the vote first. And
do
So-
we need a vote on this?
Yes, to remand it to the Finance Committee
Okay.
So
for
moved.
recommendation.
second.
Is there any discussion?
Discussion?
Oh,
No, I just want to make a comment afterwards.
I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now for an unfair question.
Oh, boy.
What would you like to have added into the budget if you'd had the funds?
That's an unfair question.
He's not prepared.
$25 million for a new building?
No, that will come later. That's a good question, because, through the bond of that 3.8, we have really accomplished a lot of capital expenditures. I guess one of the things that fell off this budget was windows on this side of the building. That was about $1.4 million. And when the jail locks came and got dropped on my desk, the windows went off and the jail locks went on. Other than that, we really didn't have a lot of dialogue about any big wish list, because we were trying to keep both budgets really narrow and skinny. And we knew our major goal this year was to take care of the non-union employees through the COLAs. And we knew that would be probably a a discussion at the Finance Committee on, 7.5% over an 18-month period, but, inflation's really affecting all of us.
Said that number partially goes back to 22 anyway, because.
Correct.
Yeah,
we were at, when municipalities gave 5 to 7, 8%, we gave our employees 3.5% in January. So we were probably 2% low at that
So,
point.
along the lines of the same question, unfair though it may be, I always try to remember by this time of years with even numbers that the legislature will be coming back into session for general purposes once every 2 years, beginning in December, for 6 months or something. So if there's anything in the next couple of years that we feel we need to have or should have considered to be changed, we need to know about it in the next 6 weeks. I'm sitting next to the guy who gets the portfolio once that happens, but, that's another thing to be thinking about as we go through all this.
Well, to your point, Jim, he may mention something, and I know we've talked in the counties about it, but probably this would be a good year because I suspect it's affected everybody in the counties. The 4% jail cap should be thrown out and let it revert to the 1% increase or the 5% increase overall. And this would be the year to kind of push that.
I don't think we ever worried about the 4% very much, because we could always just pass a resolution that said, yeah, we did this, we did it on purpose, thanks for asking,
I hear you. But it is a worry that managers have because somebody could challenge us.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just a thought. And as another comment, look at what they're thinking about for Social Security. They're somewhere between 8 something and 9 something.
percent increase.
Yeah. So.
One thing I should be transparent on is that when the commissioners back in May, June, you may remember you adopted a new grade step table for non-union employees. That grade step table, it pretty much averages about a 1% increase on each non-union employee's anniversary date. So that gets tacked on also. So we're at 7.5%. You could say 8.5% with that anniversary date merit increase.
But we need to be there, if not higher, if we're going to retain our employees.
Correct.
It's been painfully obvious this past year.
If you think,
To stay competitive in the market.
One of the
if you
things that
think
we're-
back to the details of the study, yeah, we're not in danger of vaulting to the top by any means.
So, thank you. That concludes my presentation, and we'll kick it off again on Wednesday night for the Finance Committee.
Well, thank you. Thank Alex for it.
Yes.
I will.
I assume his back will be fine tomorrow morning, huh?
I told him the rest because it's very important for him to be here at the Finance Committee meeting, so if he just comes in at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, that all's good.
You could even Zoom them in if you had to.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next up is comments from the county manager.
Oh, a couple of things this evening. I have them all on pieces of paper here. Again, Finance Committee is October 12th and November 9th. And the first meeting is this Wednesday, the 21st at 5 o'clock in this room. Also on Wednesday of this week, supervisors here at the county will be going through a 4-hour DEI training. We have been invited by the city of South Portland to join them in their supervisor DEI training. So that is a mandatory training that we have for all supervisors here in the county. We are also putting the final touches on the Leadership Academy in partnership with SMCC. and instructor Faith York over at SMCC. We have put that out, and we had such an overwhelming response to the Leadership Academy, we had to go to a second class this fall. So we have 2 classes, around 20 city and town, county individuals per class. Gorham, North Yarmouth, Cumberland, Cape Elizabeth, Falmouth, South Portland, Yarmouth, Bridgeton County, Scarborough, and I think that's it. Oh, and Sebago. And Bridgeton. I'm sorry, I don't think I said Bridgeton. So, as you can see, a wide variety. Many of those towns had 3, 4 people, 5 people that they were sending. I'm looking forward to another good Leadership Academy this year. And then I believe that is it, because I think my last item was CDBG and hitting a home run in audit, and I've already made mention to that when Kristen was here, so thank you.
Okay, up next, comments from the executive staff. Catherine? Or Travis?
The RFQ that we put out for consultant for fire EMS consolidated services, we got several very strong applicants. The committee that we formed with county staff and some volunteer town managers and fire chiefs looked at the submissions, agreed unanimously on 3 that we want to move forward with for interviews. So we'll do those interviews next week and have a recommendation for you by your next meeting.
Which, now that he brought up the next meeting, our next meeting is gonna be October, well, the 10th is a holiday, right? Yeah, the 10th is,
Usually go the next day.
so, which is the 11th. So just put that on your calendar, that the commissioners' meeting for next month will be October the 11th. And should we have a workshop on that regarding with the tasers and all that? Should we do a discussion on that? Because the commissioners have really not discussed that, have they?
No.
Is that going to be on for a final vote on that, or is that first vote?
I've been holding off on
Okay.
bringing that forward because the contract language coming from the feds is not solid at this point, and I
Okay.
believe it, they had said that there would be more information coming out in October when the
Okay.
federal government starts their new budget cycle.
Okay. Okay. So we'll just have a regular meeting on the 11th, or unless if we come up with another workshop topic. Okay. Commissioner Cloutier.
Want to remind everybody that come the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November, there's going to be an election. And at least in the city of Portland, with 14 referendum questions, if you're planning on voting on election day, you want to come early and bring a bag lunch. The situation is that you are available or able to contact your registrar of voters or town hall or city hall and request an absentee ballot be sent to you as of now. And there's also a procedure through the state website, the Secretary of State's website, to basically request that, and then they coordinate with the municipalities. So in about another week, you won't be able to see any grass on the ground because of all the political signs. And then after that, we're in full election season, and so vote early and often, as they say. And that's what I've got.
Commissioner Gorden.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Our chair and I attended a meeting where there was the 2 gubernatorial candidates, and they got quizzed on a few things, and I bring up a couple of things that I thought was interesting. One of them indicated that that the state and county, to be able to do consolidation work with services,
are going to have to buy their way out of municipal home rule. And I thought, boy, that's a heck of a statement to make.
We have opera funds.
They both recognize that, both candidates recognize that the saying that's getting to them is that county jails have become the public service of last resort. And with that, they're giving some acknowledgement to, or more than some acknowledgement to mental health, the mental health issues, the homelessness, substance abuse, know that they've got to do work. One of them even talked about probably there needs to be a reorganization of DHHS so that those issues can get handled better. And to me, that was kind of encouraging. The last thing that I'll make mention of that came up, and for the rural areas, it's more of an issue than it is for us because we have absorbed it probably incrementally, and so we ended up allowing the transfer of costs from the state tax buckets to the property tax buckets, and that's rural patrol. In a lot of the outlying areas, the state police are pulling back because they don't have the manpower, and they have shortened up their assignments, and a lot of times the deputy sheriff can get there sooner to give the public the service they need. So they work together, but what's obvious is that they're depending on the departments to do more and more. What we're asking for, or it was questioned there of them both, is that shouldn't the state be supporting the county's efforts to provide that rural patrol? And they thought about that. The indication was yes. One of them had no idea for funding. The other one thought that they did, which I thought was kind of surprising, making mention that they had indicated that the municipality, they would not allow some sort of additional tax funding, but they never indicated that they wouldn't consider it for counties. So that made me scratch my head, but I just report these things as they're beginning to have. And the whole idea of making the organization, the people are there to write up what their memory was, is so that if and when whoever gets elected, then it's a matter of reminding them of what they said and see if we can't use that as some leverage.
Commissioner Jamieson.
Thank you, Sue.
Just a couple comments. We went to this before, but the schools are back in full swing now, so please be mindful of that as you go up and down our highways, both in the morning and in the late afternoon. And another month we're going to have some time change, and it will be darker a little earlier. So let's just be careful of all our students out there on and off the buses and to from their houses. And along that same note, county high schools have all their sports teams are back out there, so we encourage you to go out there and support your team in your town, whoever that may be. And we have all kinds of other events going on, apple picking in our various orchards, and there are one or two fairs left. Apple fair is underway now, or soon will be.
No,
Soon will be. All kinds of outdoor things to get out there and enjoy as a family and as individuals. So we encourage you to do that. That's all.
And I don't have anything. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And now you can have a cookie. I was